Beware Maria. Maria talks about music, about education, about psychology and art, about sex and gender roles, about meaning and purpose, about things that are fun or interesting and can relate to each other. Maria has conversations with herself and with others, and she finds it a bit odd to talk about herself in the third person. Just beware and think about it. Today we have two superstars of Beware the Radio. We've got Gareth Munger and Andrew Brain, who are the persons who run and who created Beware the Radio. Hi, guys.
Hello.
It's so good to have you here and to have you as guests of your own radio station. How many radios do you think can do that? I have never seen that in any other radio.
I was actually excited about this. I was talking to Jess earlier, my wife, and I was saying, I'm going to be on Beware Maria. This is exciting.
Of course it is. Of course it is. So would you like to Gareth, to tell a little bit about you? Because some of the people who will be listening might not know.
I am a very youthfully minded 42-year-old from Cambridgeshire in England. Known Andy for a long time, so obviously we'll talk about that, but went to the same school. So moved to Blackpool to study illustration and stayed. And I do illustration and graphics work for a local graphics firm and do freelance, which is useful for the radio station.
Great. And you're currently in Blackpool?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, I live just outside, but I work in Blackpool.
How's it like?
It's all right. It's took a bit of some time to get used to living in somewhere that's quite culturally different to where I'm from. And I don't mean the region. I mean a seaside town. Because it's lively for about a quarter of the year, and the rest of it, it's just trying to survive.
Andrew, hello.
Hello, Maria.
What can you tell our listeners about you? What you would like them to know?
What can I tell? So I'm also 42. So yeah, we were in, Gareth and I were in the same class for a couple of years at little school, infant school. And I grew up in Cambridgeshire, in a very small town, which was very quiet. And we didn't travel much. We didn't have a car when I was growing up. So it was a very small world for the first 14, 15 years of my life. But I later at secondary school, I met some other friends who we started a band, and that has been the spine of my adult life, I suppose. I've always wanted to do projects more than day work, and have always wanted to express myself and help other people to express themselves. I think that's been an ongoing thing. So helping other members of the band to learn to write songs and to find their own voices and to orchestrate with them. And so I've done a succession of quite boring day jobs that have absolutely nothing to do with anything creative. In recent years, I've tried to change that. I went back to uni to study environmental politics, because I've always been a bit of a hippie at heart and always had interest in ecology and in environmental protest, things like that. So I have some vague idea that I'd like to be useful to an environmental pressure group, maybe writing some research for them. I just have to find the right people to do that. And then also this weird idea came up after I finished studying about opening a radio station. And luckily Gareth was quite keen on the idea, and luckily some of the very creative people I asked were very keen on the idea, like somebody named Maria Soriano, and now we're here. Astonishing.
How is it weird? Gareth, do you agree? Is it a weird idea?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Well, I don't know if you're wanting to talk the origin of the radio station just yet.
I would love to also know a lot about the origin of the station and why do you think it's a weird thing to do? Is it because we are more into internet and television that we listen to radio today?
So when I say origins, I mean the deep origins, not necessarily how Beware the Radio came to be, but why it was in mine and Andy's heads in the first place. So I used to listen to radio in the late 80s. Mum and Dad bought me a radio for my birthday, so I used to pop it onto the local radio station based in Peterborough, Hereward FM, and I used to have it on the lowest possible volume, just have it under my pillow, so that I wouldn't get caught listening to the hits of the late 80s at sort of midnight. And there's a certain magic of just trying to imagine the DJ's booth and what was going on there, and I just imagined everything's very dark, and he's sitting there in near darkness with a microphone in front of him, the little glow of his, the equipment dials and things, and a telephone, and the idea that we could just phone in with this thing that was, there was a certain element of showbiz that I sort of detected in it, even though it was local radio. I don't think it's very showbizy in real terms, but you could just phone it up and be a part of that. Not that I ever did, but so that was kind of the magic of it, and I didn't really think about it from about 1990 or a bit later than that. Didn't really think about it until Andy started saying, we could do this. So, and I think it is a little weird in the sense that you talk to people in your day-to-day life, and you say, what do you think about radio? And they're like, well, I listen to podcasts, really. And quite very few people I meet listen to radio. They might catch up on things, or they might just put it on in the car because they're in the car and they can't do anything else. So it's, I don't want to call it an odd move, because obviously with the internet you can reach anywhere. So in theory there should be a worldwide reach. So it's not the maddest idea, but I don't think I'd have done it if I was wanting to speak to anybody in the area. I think that would be a bigger ask. I
just wanted to say there's a recent survey, just found it again, from Ofcom, the media regulator in the UK, that suggests that almost 90% of people in the UK listen to the radio at least once a week.
Right.
Okay.
And apparently the consumption of the radio is increasing, although maybe that's to do with people being in a more restricted situation in the last 2 years.
Who would like to tell about how Beware the Radio was conceived and created and why?
Andy will give you a better version.
Do I go back to us recording fake radio shows in the late
definitely.
1980s? Because we used to, amongst some of the games that we would play, we would take cassette recorders and we would improvise into them these pretend radio shows. And this was from about when we were about 8 years old.
Can you believe I used to do the same with my sister?
Excellent.
With cassette tapes, and we will the cassette had a tale or story or something underneath that we didn't want anymore. We will cover it so we could be put on top of it. And now you tell me this. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, well, we used to run out of the room and play music, through the air, from another device. So we could play a song in, run out of the room, and then come in and do the link pieces.
Wow. And recording from the radio also. From other radio, just music, and then talk about it. That's incredible. It's the first person I have met in many years that has said something like this while being in the same radio.
Well, we then used to put them onto cassettes like this sort of thing. So you can see that. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I used to do too.
Yeah. So I have a whole load of Andy's cassettes that he's made, which have snippets of our old radio show on.
So you think, guys, we were all conditioning ourselves as children to later on be part of our online community radio?
Or
working towards this point.
Yes.
Well, I can remember in the 80s there was a do you know Lenny Henry, the comedian, and his TV show, which was normally a sketch show, very quick.
Yeah, I know
comedy
what you're going to say. You're going to say Crucial FM.
Yeah, and for 2 years, the format of the show changed, and it was a sitcom. And he was playing one character. He played the character of Delbert Wilkins, who was a pirate DJ on a radio channel, a legal channel called the Brixton Broadcasting Corporation. And it was brilliant. I loved it. I thought that was so cool. I thought it was crucial indeed. And that must have been a big influence, because that is around the time we started doing these tapes. Thinking back, that comedy show, yeah, must have been.
And there was that occasion when we borrowed a small, very short-range transmitter from one of my uncles who worked in telecommunications. And he kept saying for ages, "Oh, I'll lend you a transmitter, I'll lend you a transmitter." And I can't remember how long he was talking about it for, but just the idea that we could actually broadcast properly. And of course, it probably just broadcasted as far as the end of the road.
What comes to mind is that, do you keep any of these pretend radio shows that you could stream one day today?
Yes.
Yes, you do. That is golden.
And actually, there is a certain time factor now, because all of these tapes, like, I don't know, Maria, when you would have been recording your shows, your probably these golden time capsules.
It would be 80s. It would be 80s, definitely.
But we must be careful with them, because they will start to really disappear. The tapes will be degrading over time. So
mine sound awful already.
We really should be digitizing them as soon as we can.
Yes.
Yeah. So after that, we got interested in the idea of written zines, because I think it didn't really seem a feasible idea in the 90s to actually do anything in radio. Like Gareth said, there was this showbiz element to it, that it felt like it was slightly another world. And for myself, I had no idea how we would get inside that world.
Well, in the mid-90s, we probably even a little bit earlier, we were doing a lot of script writing, weren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you were reading a lot of scripts and writing because of that, and I was seeing you doing that and writing.
Was that part of the show, or was it a different thing?
I think these were like alternate film scripts. Okay, Andy was writing comedy.
I understand. So first you were doing these tapes as children, and then later on you keep being friends, and then you were starting to write some scripts. Is that it?
Yes. And I think we could probably see what we thought was a route towards becoming professional writers that way, if you kept going. Although, I think we weren't brave enough in pursuing it.
Well, you sent a few off, didn't you?
I sent a few off, but there's a certain problem there as regards youthful exuberance. I sent off my worst scripts before I could write, and that was a learning process. I would write something because I thought I can do as well as this terrible show I see on the TV, and indeed I was successful at writing something terrible, and then I sent it off, and because I didn't get an invite to go straight to BBC headquarters and arranged my new employment with the BBC, because they said yes, thank you, goodbye, then I was very disheartened. And as I got better, even as I started to find any comic voice, I stopped sending them. So
and of course those things that you watch, they probably started out as probably very good ideas but got watered down, and something got lost in translation from script to actual executed program.
Yeah, I think that's very likely, because the whole internal wranglings at TV companies.
Andy, you've sent me some jingles, and I would like very much to play at least one or two of them. And it says A&G, Beware the Radio. Which one would you like? And can you explain a little bit of what these jingles mean?
Sure.
A&G is the original name of our cassette radio, isn't it?
Yes. A&G radio.
A&G for Andy and Gareth. Okay. So shall I play that one?
Sure. So I believe this will be a jingle that tries to direct people to our merchandise page at Redbubble.
To your what? Sorry.
To our station merchandise page, where we sell all of our branded products.
But that was before the radio was existing.
No.
Ah.
This is actually recorded. This is recorded at around the time the station started last year in early 2021. And one of the first things that I was able to get on with was creating a load of jingles. And on this one, this is me and Gareth improvising some nonsense about.
Shall I play it?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's play it.
What's Redbubble.com?
T-shirts, mugs, bath mats, shower curtains, stickers, coasters, other things.
Hold on. And you say Beware the Radio is on Redbubble.com?
And don't they know it?
Thank you. Why horses on it?
Why horses? Because no particular reason. I'm not. I'm not an equestrian. Not at all. That is purely expediency, and we have access to the old sound effects library of the BBC. They were kind enough to make their entire sound effects library free for people to use. These used to be distributed on vinyl records and then on CDs, and people used them in radio productions and on in theatre and even on some albums. Some famous albums have got little clips from the BBC sound effects, and now they're all available on a website where you can mix them and combine them. And so that's why I just grabbed a lot of settings.
Which other one would you like me to play?
Okay. How about how about It's the Little Things?
It says
BTR.
What style? BTR. I've got 3 of them.
Okay, so it should be a BTR. It's the Little Things.
Okay, I'm going to play It's the Little Things.
It's the little things that scar the deepest, moths in the pulses draw, unexpected protein, beware the radio.
Wow, that was an interesting sound. How do you do that? That effect?
Which one was it? Because I can't hear it at this end.
Beware the radio.
Oh, is that the Herald one?
This is that is an example of something that I really loved growing up. I loved all of the presentation between the shows, and that's on radio and TV. So if we were going to have a radio station, then we'd better have some jingles. And I loved that close harmony sound. Like that's just an approximation of trying to work out what kind of chords they used on the jingles from when we were growing up, and what kind of harmonies were going on. So it's that's an early attempt from me, but I hope over time to get a bit closer to that sort of Swingle Sisters close harmony style. But of course the lyrics had to be.
I'm on the queue to get my own Beware Maria jingle. I'd love to have one. You said before, Andrew, but please, for anyone to reply, that you like to help people express themselves. How do you do it? And do you think that radio is a good way to help people not just listen, but also interact with it actively in order to express themselves?
I think that it really can be very different. I can give the example of when I've been in radio. When I was in radio stations, the first few times, other stations that had professional premises, it was with bands where I was doing maybe an interview and a short set. And we found it a lot more comfortable in the radio studio. It's like there's a certain coziness and intimacy of radio that potentially can allow you to speak comfortably, I think. And for somebody that might feel they're not ready to get up on stage and be in front of all those pairs of eyes looking back, there's this weird illusion that we're speaking just to the microphone, and yet it can go out to lots of people. I find that quite freeing, and I imagine that if I do, then maybe it could be the case for other people who might struggle with their confidence, and maybe they feel that they have an idea or half an idea, but they're not sure if they're ready for it. And one of the goals for Beware the Radio, I think, has always been to help people find their voice, to experiment in a low pressure situation. We wanted to be very welcoming and give people the room to just try things out, really.
Which is something that would have benefited us back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Gareth, what have you learned out of interacting with Beware?
I think I have to preface this by just pointing out that
just preface.
That I'm pretty tied up with a lot of other things, so I don't get to put as much time into Beware as I would like. I find it quite easy sitting down and doing working out new logos and merchandise and things like that. But in terms of actual Beware the Conversation was something that I was kind of hoping to sort of take off with and run a load of those, take some pressure off Andy and others, for producing programs. And I've managed to get one. One has gone live and has been up for live. One has run a few times, and the other one is about to go up. But so what I've learned is that there's a lot more to it than I thought there was. It's as complicated as you decide to make it as well. And there's, despite the fact that it should be really easy because the internet basically gives you the world to broadcast to, there are no guarantees either. Andy would probably agree with that.
I would like to play one more jingle here. It's called Serving Everywhere.
Okay.
Is that okay? Let's see how it is.
Let's hear it.
Beware the Radio. Non-profit, non-commercial, freeform radio serving the Faroe Islands, Ross and Cromarty, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Wells next the sea, Penzance, Pompeii, Guam, Eris. 24/7 live and on demand. Beware the Radio.
I love this one. I think this is my favorite. This is so good. Serving everywhere, because actually, since I learned from you, this radio garden thing, it's so fun. It's so much fun to see how many radio stations are linking together and are streaming, and that you can see that Beware is one more dot there in the world. So good.
Radio
but do
Garden.
You think that? Sorry, yeah.
Radio Garden. It's a beautiful format for a radio map. I'm surprised that it's. I'm surprised that it's taken so long for somebody to find the wonderful simplicity of the pinpricks on the map, and apply it to radio. It becomes addictive to look around, fly around the map and find a new station on there.
Absolutely. Guys, is there a niche for independent radio, non-commercial, no censorship or little one? Is there censorship here? Do we have any censorship everywhere? Self-censorship?
We are aware that because it's international, then we may we may be broadcasting adult content in the middle of the day or during the school run. So I think we have a kind of we could try and keep the language a little bit clean, just because you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about the limit of it, really. We've had a couple of little conversations about, is this track okay to play? And sometimes it's just about how it will be taken by the audience, because we want to keep things as welcoming and as open-minded, but still invite people in. You have to invite people in, otherwise you run the risk of not having any audience. So
Yeah.
I think within that, it's really open, the policy. You know, it may go from, given our very eclectic and random playlist style, it may go from something that's quite noisy to something that's very quiet, and a lot of speech to a lot of sound. And I'm not sure that we want to put too many limits on that.
What about the audience? The audiences, is there a target audience?
I think if there is, it's people who want to find something different, people who are maybe bored of mainstream radio, but who maybe don't feel part of a clique or a very fashionable set. Part of the problem, I think, with some alternative stations that already exist is that it can feel a bit insular, like they're speaking to a group of people in one city who can get into all the cool clubs. And I think our station is not for people who can get into the cool clubs.
I think we struggled a little bit with the language of how you describe the people you're trying to appeal to, because if you sort of talking about free thinkers and people who are not sort of shackled to a certain way of, you know, certain approaches, you can end up describing people that you really don't want listening to the station as well. It's not that you don't want them listening, it's just that you don't want them to form the core, because inevitably you hope that you'll get enough feedback and that the feedback will inform you of directions to explore. But if you invite a lot of people to listen by your descriptions of them, then you could end up with some iffy groups.
I was just going to ask about this. What about the feedback? Are you getting people coming to you to tell you about it?
I've noticed that there's a gradual upswing in the number of emails and messages that we get on places like Facebook. It's from people wanting to do a show for the station or wanting to submit their music. And that's something I'm very keen on encouraging. If people listen to us and feel they'd like to be part of it, that's great. And that can be from all over the world, people from Australia, Brazil, Germany, Ireland. Yeah, but it is quite awkward if you have a station that's got a name like Beware the Radio, and then you're talking about being open-minded and free-thinking things, ensuring that because language can be so treacherous nowadays, particularly in this social media era where all kinds of buzzwords get amplified. There is this danger of scaring off people, and I've had that conversation when I've been at trade fairs trying to find potential people to interview, and then when they see we're from a station called Beware the Radio, some people will bristle thinking this is going to be something very controversial. Do they want their business to be involved in a station called Beware the Radio?
Would you like to tell us what are you looking forward to for Beware the Radio? And very, very shortly, why do we call it Beware the Radio?
Well, the name, it originally comes from a piece of music in the 90s that my band made when we were 14 years old. So in that way, it's a big in-joke. But Beware the Radio, it then became... Beware the song became Beware the Zine. It was just a name that stuck around. We liked the sound and the weight of it, and the idea of telling people to be careful as they handle this thing you're offering them. I think we just want to reach more people and find out what the ways of reaching people are, because I think some of our most likely audience is not found in social media, and so it requires different ways of getting the word out there. But I definitely want to hear from more correspondents from around the world. I'm very happy if people want to tell us their story, record little episodes, send them in, and we broadcast them, and we amplify them, especially now that we're part of the Pacifica network. We've just been accepted onto this non-profit network. Most of the stations in it are in the US, and we are the only station that is UK based within this network. And I feel that's a real opportunity to get our stories heard by people in other countries, build up friendly contacts with those stations, and we could do all kinds of collaboration.
That sounds fantastic. So if you are there listening to this now and you want to send us your contribution, or you would like to engage or participate in any way, please get in touch. How should people get in touch?
Well, easiest way is via email, info@bewaretheradio.com. And there's a link to that if you go to the station website, or if you just type us into Google, and you can find our Facebook, our Instagram, our TikTok, and we're contactable through all of those. So just shout and holler and bang on our door, and we'll take notice.
Any final thoughts, Gareth?
In answer to your question, what else do we want? I'd like to hear a little bit more made-for-radio drama and comedies sort of reaching out to us. That'd be nice to hear.
Well, you've got one, Gareth.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Gareth, submit it to your own radio.
But what if I get turned down?
Well, then you get very discouraged, but you would try again.
Yes, I'll do that.
That's it. Okay, thanks, guys, for taking the time on a Sunday to speak with me, and I look forward to get this out there.
Maria, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.